What's going on, guys? Evil Dragon here, back with another episode of Can This Game Fit Onto an N64 Cartridge? Real quick disclaimer, like always, I know nothing about coding. That's not my area of expertise. I don't really understand this stuff. The only thing I do really understand is if you take out content, lower graphical quality or audio quality or things like that. But the big part is taking out that content. It'll typically shrink a video game's storage, memory, capacity, all that stuff. And the example I always use is Resident Evil 2 was a 2-disc, 1.4 gigabyte PS1 game that shrunk, and they put it onto an N64 64 megabyte cartridge. So that's what we're going to do today with Minecraft. Its storage size is typically around 1 to 2 gigabytes, and then depending on your world, multiplayer worlds, stuff like that, it can range from the average world being, 200 to 400 megabytes to 1.1 to 2.5 gigabytes of storage, depending on, how big your single-player world is, and multiplayer worlds can be tens and tens of gigabytes. So, yeah. Looking at this here, though, Minecraft, like I said, is a relatively smaller game, and the blueprint we're going to be going off of, as well to try and help shrink the storage size down to our ideal version of Minecraft here that it could fit, is the PE version, the original PE version from those early day phones and tablets. The 3DS version that's a real thing, and then the legacy version of Minecraft from like the 360, PS3, Wii U, old PS4, Xbox One edition, stuff like that. Those will be our blueprints to try and what we can take out. Because again, like I said, the whole part of this series is to just see what can we take out of the game to still keep it the same game, but with less. So we did Terraria, we took out some boxes and blocks, but it was still Terraria at the end of the day. Same thing with Minecraft here. What can we take out of Minecraft that is still Minecraft, but we want it to fit onto an N64 cartridge and work with an N64 controls. Speaking of which, the N64 controller, how would that work? So, starting off, this is what the controller looks like, of course, and right away it looks weird because you would need two joysticks, or at least, a computer mouse, stuff like that. However, I had a different idea. It could still work as the N64 has two D-pads technically. The C buttons, which is still technically a D-pad, and then the D-pad itself. Now, most games only require the joystick or the D-pad, so you use your left hand on the middle prawn, right hand on the right prawn, or left hand on left prawn, right hand on right prawn. In this case, we're going to do the left hand on the middle prawn with the joystick, and the right hand on the right prawn there. Now, how would that work? Now, for starters, Minecraft on console uses the right stick to, move your camera, and the left stick to move your character. This is going to be flipped. So the joystick right there in the middle is going to be how you move your camera. You want that 360-degree movement. That's how it's going to be used. And the C buttons are going to be used to move forward, left, right, and back. If you maybe move two at a time, say the up and right button, you'll move diagonal, so you can move that 8-dimensional way. But of course, if you're moving your joystick in every different way, you have those 360-degree movement. You'll be able to move just fine in any certain direction. Really won't need to move that often, so it's not too bad there. The start button in the middle will bring up your menu to, log out of your game, save your game, start your game, stuff like that. Your A button will be your jump, of course, and your B button would be your inventory because it's right there. The shoulder buttons, L and R at the top there, will go ahead and, move your hotbar. And then your break button, your break blocks, will be the Z button at the back. Now, of course, you have to be able to place blocks. So how this will work, it'll be a little bit finicky, but if you're trying to break a block, you'll need a tool or item in your hand, or your fist, as you can see here in this little demonstration. But if you want to place a block, you'll obviously have to have the block in your hand, and you'll place it. Very simple, very easy, just like that. You will not be able to break blocks if a block is in your hand, so you just have to shift your item, when you open your inventory. B, to move stuff around, you just move the joystick by pressing A on an item, and then you can move it down to your hotbar, which will only be 4 or 5 spaces like old Minecraft Pocket Edition was as well. So again, to make stuff, it's a little bit more complicated, but to make it simple, when you have a block in your hand, you press the Z button, it places it. Any other item, like a tool or item, it'll start to break it if you hold it down. Very simple. Now, to bring up the crafting inventory again, when you hit the inventory, it'll be in the top right there. And then to attract the crafting table specifically, or a furnace or a chest, you just, again, the Z button, you'll melee that crafting table or a furnace or chest, those 3 items in particular. It'll open the chest, the furnace, the crafting table, and that's how you use those items. Moving on, though, we'll look at single player last, as I think that'll be the biggest thing I want to talk about. But creative mode will be very similar to the earliest games, not even Minecraft, but Cave Game, how it was just a flat surface just like this, and the screenshots I'm showing here, and you can only place blocks. We're going to take this into effect where you'll have a 200 by 200 square to work with of blocks. That's all you're going to have. It'll just be floating, maybe 4 blocks deep like the original version, and that's it. when you open the creative menu, here is the items you'll have. You'll have 2 slides to go through. The first slide will be all the blocks and stuff that you can use, which, as you see here, we'll go over it. So first, having the grass block, cobblestone, dirt block, stone, sand, sandstone, gravel, clay, large grass, an oak tree, so the log with the leaves. That really ruined the time? Okay. Not the vines or second one, but the sapling, coal ore, diamond ore, iron ore, gold ore. These would be the only ores due to taking out both trading, so no emeralds, taking out all the redstone stuff and everything that comes with it, so no redstone. And enchanting would not be here, and lapis really didn't have a use anyways. Stone bricks, mossy cobblestone, which again would only spawn on that 1 or 2 dungeons. Snow, if you got the lucky snow world. Cactus, which would be in the desert biome. The 3 flowers, which would be the red rose, the blue rose that was on Pocket Edition only, and the dandelion. The other blocks would be the wool that come with it, so white wool, red wool, blue wool, yellow wool, green wool, purple wool, orange wool, brown wool, black wool, and gray wool. Of course, all the ores make the blocks of gold, iron, and diamond. A chest, crafting table, and furnace would be the only 3 kind of blocks there. TNT, which would be from the mobs. A door, fence, bed, planks, as there wasn't any other kind of wood. Torches, the flower pot, glass for smelting sand, sign, the railroad track, whatever, the ladder, bricks, netherrack, which would be exclusive to the nether reactor core. Right, obviously you don't have that, but that would be a little PE version to spawn that in. Obsidian and endstone from the end dimension for endstone, and then obsidian just water and lava together. Technically, water and lava could be considered their own thing if we wanted to, but. And then the other slide, when you scroll down in the creative menu, will be all the items you can put into chests, or in this creative mode, your limited edition item frame, which would be all these items. The leather armor with the wood tools, all the way down to the diamond armor and the diamond tools. The bow, as in creative mode, you would just shoot arrows, you wouldn't need arrows for it. Flint and steel, the fishing rod, the food, of course, wouldn't matter, but you would also have the ender pearl, and then the exclusive item frame, and then again, you would also put the water bucket and the lava bucket down here as well. And then going on to the survival mode items, which we'll talk about in a second here. And yeah, you just spawn with nothing. There's no mobs in creative mode. It's only 1 creative mode per cartridge. And again, it's just a flat thing, so it allows you to build whatever you want, have that free roam, build mansions, build little mini games and stuff. Because we'll get into the split screen and all that in a little bit. But that'll be your creative mode. Very simple. Now, survival mode is where it'll get interesting, because for survival mode, it's always varies on various versions, especially with its game size. The PE version was the smallest size I could find, which was 256 blocks by 256 blocks, slightly bigger than this creative mode, but of course it's way deeper, and its build height was 128 blocks, so obviously a lot more depth to that world. But then legacy versions had 800 by 800, which was the smallest blocks, or technically 856 by 856. But I think our ideal size should be slightly bigger, hopefully, than that PE version, because I would hope that a console, even if it is, of course, really older than the first phones, it would hopefully be able to handle it a little bit more. So let's hope that these ideal worlds can be 300 by 300 with a max build limit of 100, so we're lowering that, and then, of course, you maybe start at like Y60 or 80 or whatever, and it goes down to 0, which is where your bedrock will be. That is how big that'll be there. And then, of course, here is what I want to add. Obviously, random generated world takes a lot of memory, a lot of RAM, a lot of storage. That'll obviously take up a lot of that space. It'll be, hard and for the system to kind of run that. So here's what I am thinking. 5 to 10 worlds that are all already implemented into every single cartridge of this Minecraft, this hypothetical Minecraft, and it's randomly generated which one you get. So again, they're all made, customized, whatever. When you load up your Minecraft, you have 3 save files in case, maybe your sibling or something wants to play their own version of Minecraft Survival specifically. And when you, hit your new world, it picks from 10 different worlds that it can be. One of them being the winter biome. As the biomes here I'll talk about it right here really quick. So for your biomes, it would be very, very simple. Because we want to keep it simple, you would of course have your little cave, which would just be stone everywhere, right? No, literally just full of this, some gravel eventually, and then your ores. If you find the rare dungeon that would spawn in every world, as the two structures would be the dungeon, which would literally just be the dungeon we have now, but no mob spawners. It would just be dark enough that maybe mobs would spawn. There would be a chest or two in there that would have basic loot, like maybe some gold ingots or something. But that's how the only way you could get in survival the moss cobblestone, which is how it was for a long time there. And then also they would have the stronghold built in, which again, when you would do the nether reactor core, which would kind of be another biome on its own, you activate that to spawn the nether portion. You get the blazes, of course, and then you fight you fight endermen, craft the ender pearl, whatever. That would be kind of your other structure in the biome in its own. It would literally not just be a massive structure, it would again just be the portal room as its own. So no tunnels, no library, no nothing, just the portal room there. Now, again, the biomes here would be your kind of fields area in this, again, hypothetical 300 by 300. It would just be the fields with the red, yellow, and blue flowers that would spawn there. It would be the little forest, which would only contain these trees, of course. It would be the beach, which would have, maybe little water pockets with sand. And this is where it could stop here. The sand on the beaches would spawn the cactus. Or, if not, if it could fit, we could also put in the desert, which would just be a little bit of sand. Again, no water, no trees, no nothing, just sand, and then the occasional cactus. But one of these worlds, again, if it's 5 or 10 of these worlds that are, again, the exact same on every cartridge, one of them will be winter designed, as back in the day, in the, I believe, alpha or betas, there was a chance that when you would create a world, it would be considered winter themed, or it'd be like a winter biome, so everything was coated in snow. It was the only way to get snow. It was extremely rare. So out of these 5 or 10 worlds, one of them will be that winter theme world, again, be coated in snow, and that'll be the only way you can actually get snow. But the entire world, including the desert or beach areas, will be coated in snow. Now, when you break snow, does that do anything? No, you can't get snowballs, you can't make snow blocks, nothing. It's just for aesthetic, to kind of keep it simple. So you can break it, but if you break it, nothing happens. That way you can still get that random generation, of course. Again, the worlds aren't randomly always 100% of the time, but if there's 5 to 10 worlds, and again, one of them being that winter theme, if you want to keep remaking worlds or whatever on this older hypothetical N64 version of Minecraft, it would still keep that random aspect. It would still be a lot more fun. Because again, if there's 10 worlds, you might, and it's all random, it's a 1 in 10 chance every single time, you might get the same world several times, you might get them all different in a row, it doesn't matter, it's still that random aspect, which would be fun for that survival part. Now, looking at the mobs really quick, as I did briefly mention the blazes in the nether reactor core, of course, the mobs would be 3 passive mobs. Cows would only drop leather. No meat, no milk, no nothing, they would just drop leather specifically. Then you'd have the pigs, which would drop the meat, of course, and then you would have the sheep, which if you kill them, they drop wool, no meat. That's it. So those are the 3 passive mobs. Then the hostile mobs would be the zombies, which back in the older days, they would drop feathers, not rotten flesh. So same thing. You kill a zombie, you drop feathers. That's how you'd craft your arrows. Skeletons would drop bones, no arrows, no bows, no nothing, just bones. Spiders would drop string to craft the bow and fishing rod. Creepers are there because they're a mistake, but they're kind of like that mascot of Minecraft. So that's how you get the gunpowder to make the TNT to just fool around with and mess with. Enderman would, of course, drop the ender pearls. And then, like I said, when you activate the nether reactor core, usually, of course, in the PE version, it would spawn that nether spire with the zombie pigmen. However, in this version, it would drop blazes, and blazes wouldn't drop blaze rods, drop blaze powder. So if you kill them, you of course get that blaze powder. Then you have to hunt down the enderman to get the ender pearls, to then craft the eyes of ender. And then finally, you would go ahead and go find that stronghold, which again is just this portal room, spawn it, go in, and the end would not just have obsidian pillars. There'd be no way for the ender dragon to regen itself, no way to breathe fire. The only way the ender dragon could damage you is to fly down and hit you. Again, very simple, very dumbed down, of course. And again, no obsidian pillars. It'd just be an island of endstone with the portal in the middle. So once you take down the ender dragon, you beat that final boss of Minecraft, which is, again, the end. The portal would turn on and you would go back through and whatever. That way, however, if you want to do and fight the ender dragon again on the same world, once you go back through that portal, it would put you in wherever you spawn in. Then, if you want to fight again the ender dragon again, you would have to go ahead and get all the blaze powder, all the ender pearls, because once you go through the portal the first time in that stronghold, it would just turn itself off, so you'd have to get more eyes of enders to do it again in the same world. I think that way it could be still fun, and you can keep fighting that final boss again and again to kind of get that boss part of Minecraft done and in that section here. Now, looking at all the items and all the food. I mentioned some of the items previously. The other items would be the food, which is, again, pigs would give you your meat, and you cook that to get it, of course, cooked. You get fish by catching the fish and then cooking the fish. Wheat from the large grass, you break it, you get the seeds, then you grow the seeds. And from bone meal as well, that would just grow it up and you can craft bread. And then when trees start despawning from, breaking it and breaking leaves and whatever, they would drop apples. And from gold ingots, you could craft the golden apples. That is it. That would be the only food. So again, apples, golden apples, raw fish, raw meat, cooked meat, and bread. 7 options there, which again gives that option. But the thing is, in older Minecraft, there was no food bar. So again, same thing here. You wouldn't have a food bar. It would just regen your health. Golden apple would regen your health all the way. So even if you were half a heart, it would go all the way back up because there wasn't natural regen. Cooked food, like meat or fish, would do a good solid couple hearts. Bread would do slightly less, and then the raw food would be the worst of it there, but still give a little bit, maybe half a heart to 1 full heart. Now again, potions and stuff, even though there are blazes, that would all be removed. And so the final items you would really have, besides the building blocks and the armors and the foods, would be those materials like planks and sticks, and your gold ingots and iron ingots, diamonds, flint, feathers, leather, bone, seeds, wheat, clay, gunpowder. Of course, your ways of travel would be like the boat, of course, but not the boat with the row like that we have now, the older boat, which is really bad, and then the minecart, because of course we have the railway track, so you would have that minecart. And that would really be, of course, besides the blocks I mentioned, I guess if you want to count the sapling as a block, so if we want to count that as a block, sure, same with the flowers, but those would be really the only items left, except for the dye. As I showed some of the wool off, it was white wool all the way down to black and gray. However, we only had, the 3 flowers, so just from mixing you would get all the stuff, which I'll mention really quickly here. Coming with this would be all the dyes, which of course be from the red flower, blue flower, yellow and blue make green, yellow and red make orange, red and blue make purple and blue would make black, purple and yellow would make brown, and then gray would be that black and white, which white you would get from bones. And that's really it. I mean, we covered everything from, again, that little 1 singular creative world per cartridge, 3 survival worlds per cartridge that, you can split up and share with. That would have between 5 to 10 randomly selected worlds when you, make one or make a new file. Again, you would have 2 structures, the dungeon, which wouldn't have a mob spawner. It would just be dark enough that mobs would spawn in there, and it would have a little bit, maybe 1 or 2 chests with a little bit of loot. And then the other structure would be that stronghold, of course, which, again, would just be the portal room, which you then have to do that nether reactor course shenanigans to then, get the blazes to spawn, kill them to get the blaze powder, hunt down endermen to get the ender pearls, craft your as an ender, and then, of course, summon the portal, go into the portal, fight the ender dragon, exit, and then you can repeat that. And then again, you have that survival Minecraft with the 7 food, the selective armors from leather to diamond, and the tools that come with it. And again, all the items in between, as we mentioned, and the ways to travel being the railway and minecart, and then the boat. So that's everything except for split screen. How would that work? Well, again, obviously we're already stretching a little bit, but split screen, of course, works, and there is 4 controller ports on the N64. So the more controllers you plug in, the more people would enter. So you have that split screen of the top bottom screen for 2 people, and then the 3 players would be the bottom right screen would just be black, which is how it is in these older versions. And then you have the top left, top right, and the bottom left being a screen. And then of course, if you add in a 4th player, you all have your own little quadrant of the screen, and that's how you would all play together on that really super small world. But that's how multiplayer would work. Just simple. Again, all the controls would be the exact same. Again, all the share screen would be the stuff like there, so you'd have to share, of course. And that's how it would work. That would be Minecraft on the N64. Would it be possible? Again, I'm not a coder, I have no idea, but it is fun to always just talk about what we can take out. And again, at this point, it's still Minecraft. It's definitely an older version of Minecraft, even PE. But again, even back then in the alpha beta days and the PE days, there wasn't the end. I wanted to keep that in there because for Minecraft, that is the, for speedrunners and stuff, that's the final boss. That is the end. So I wanted to keep that in there, as I feel like that is a big part of Minecraft, that end final boss. While it is a sandbox, you can do whatever you want. Eventually, you do go ahead and take down the Ender Dragon. Not even the Wither, the Ender Dragon specifically. So yeah, there's that. And without further ado, like I said, I think we definitely could see that Minecraft could potentially fit onto an N64 cartridge. Hope you guys did enjoy nonetheless. Maybe leave a like, maybe leave a nice comment down below, maybe hit that subscribe button, hit that little bell, and I'll see you all next time for another can this video game fit onto an N64 cartridge video in the series thing. Bye, everybody.